Smart takes on the biggest stories in sports. The Fan Drive Time with Ben Ennis and Stephen Brunt. Subscribe and download the show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sportsnet 590, The Fan.
Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Walu. A reminder, we are streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday between 2 and 3 p.m. I'll be joined in the first segment soon by Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer. Oh, actually, we are already joined. All right, this is great. All right, so for the first segment, I'm joined by Kevin O'Connor, host of The Mismatch, host of the Void podcast shows on The Ringer, some of the best draft content you'll see out there, some of the best NBA coverage you'll see out there. KOC, what's going on, man?
Hey, man, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, and I'm just going to warn you up front that I'm going to press the Rookie of the Year agenda and the All-NBA agenda on you. I know you have a vote, and I know Raptor fans are always complaining about the American media not taking notice. I know this doesn't apply to you, okay? You know, you definitely cover the Raptors with great detail, with great intent, and very truthfully as well. But I'm just going to prepare you right now, KOC. I'm going to try to get those votes.
I am completely ready to consume the Raptors propaganda. I'm ready.
Okay, all right. Well, good. Let's start with Rookie of the Year, the most important award in the league. At least according to Raptor fans. This, a weird thing's been happening where, okay, so this has been an incredible draft class, right? And we can get into that. But, Scottie was probably the first guy to sort of throw his hat in the ring and was like, yo, look at how good Scottie is. And then he kind of cooled off a little bit. Evan Mobley's pretty much been great all throughout the season. And then he kind of took the lead. And now we're seeing Cade Cunningham do what he's doing, which is amazing. So I really just wanted to start here with you. Who do you have right now as your front runner for Rookie of the Year with about a month left in the season?
Right now, I'd give Evan Mobley the slight edge over Scottie Barnes and over Cade Cunningham in that top three for Rookie of the Year voting. There's really nobody else who I think even has a chance to catch those guys. Like Jalen Green's closing the year strong for Houston, but the beginning of his year in the middle of the season was so inefficient. There's like no time for him to catch up. But with Cade, Cade's been amazing defensively all year. Now he's scoring, like crazy. And then Evan Mobley's been great all year. And so has Scottie Barnes. So right now for me, I give Mobley the slight edge, but it's really, really, really close. And I could see either Cade Cunningham or Scottie Barnes taking the number one spot over this final month. There's a long time to go, man, still.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? I'm actually happy you started there because I think I'm in agreement with you right now. It is really close. Okay, so the case for Mobley. Obviously, this is a Raptors show. People who are listening to this primarily watch the Raptors. Not sure how many Cavs games they've watched. I mean, to be honest, we saw the last Cavs game. Mobley was pretty good. He had 20 and 17. All right, I've seen him have a 30-piece since. He's with that great block on Zubac. But for people who maybe not as familiar with Mobley, who see Scottie do what he does every single day, and they're really excited, and they're wondering, how could there be anybody else even in the conversation? Can you just describe to this audience why Evan Mobley is a favorite at the moment?
I mean, the way I would look at it is like, if someone hasn't watched Evan Mobley, I would say, well, what is it about Scottie Barnes that makes him so special? As a rookie, he plays like a veteran. He's smart. He can do so many different things on the court. And that's the case with Evan Mobley. He's a very intelligent player who doesn't have reckless turnovers. He keeps good control of the ball. He can score within the flow of the offense, but he can also create a little bit for you too. And then defensively, the dude's a monster, just like Scottie Barnes is in their own respective ways. Evan Mobley being more of a rim protector as a 7-footer, but he can also defend on the perimeter, just like Scottie Barnes is, big enough and strong enough and smart enough to defend across positions and do it effectively. So I think a lot of the same qualities that make Scottie Barnes such an amazing rookie and a player that inspires so much, optimism of what they could become in the future. It's the same thing for Cavs fans with Evan Mobley, just in like a slightly different type of player as a center rather than a forward type.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And, when you're comparing two guys like this, who are similar in some ways, but also fundamentally very different, right? Like you look at Mobley, he's playing a big role. He can finish plays, but as you mentioned, he can also get his own. but I think the assisted field goal percentages, I think they're a little bit higher for Mobley than it is for Scottie. It makes sense, to be honest. Whereas, Scottie, obviously, defensively, he's guarding the ball a lot more, right? We've seen him spend a lot of time guarding guys like Tatum. Against Doncic, he was the primary defender, although that's not a great case for Scottie. I think Doncic might have had 40 in that game and hit the game winner over him. But in any case,
Luka does it to everybody, though.
You're right. You're right. You can't hold it against
everybody.
Yes. But so, how do you compare that? Like, how do you balance that? Do you favor a guy who can create more of his own offense versus someone who can still be very efficient but sort of plays off of others? And then defensively, that's a bigger conversation to be had. But what do you value more, like a guy who really is able to defend multiple positions on the ball versus someone who's able to have a tremendous defensive impact as sort of a team defender?
It's hard because there's two ways to answer that. One is, well, which guy would I rather have on my team and build around him and try to win a championship? It's like, in that sense, you want the creator. I think the guys who can create off the dribble and generate offense for you are always the guys that are your preference, especially if they also defend and can score themselves, just like Scottie Barnes can. So maybe it's Scottie, long term. In that sense over Mobley. But again, like with Mobley, he can do a little bit of that too, just in a different way and a different type of package. But in terms of rookie of the year, how do you evaluate both of those guys this year against each other? It's really like apples and oranges. It's really hard to pick one of them for the award. It's sort of like with defensive player of the year. Everybody talks about Rudy Gobert, the interior guy, the rim protector, versus some of the perimeter-oriented players like a Mikal Bridges you're hearing conversation about from the Suns. Or like Draymond Green still thinks he's in the conversation, still thinks he has a chance to win it, and he's more of a switchable guy. And it's like, oh, you're just picking one for defensive player of the year when there's like dramatically different types of roles and responsibilities. It's tough. And then for rookie of the year, I don't know. Then you also have Cade, who's more of the playmaker, the guy who's running that offense and generating everything for that team for the most part. So it's three really much different types of guys that are competing against each other for rookie of the year. It's tough, to be honest with you. And I don't know. I really don't know what I'm going to do right now. And I might not know the last week of the season, because I think all three of those guys have been stellar. But Mobley and Barnes have been stellar for longer. And I think that should matter a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, just stepping aside out of this duality between these two guys, between Mobley and Barnes. So Cade has really come on strong of late. Like, I'm looking at since Valentine's Day, 22 points, 7.5 rebounds, 6 assists per game. The percentages are still low, which you can kind of expect as the primary creator for a team like Detroit. But, like, I think the Pistons are 500 in that stretch too. Like, that, I mean, to get that Pistons team to, I mean, I understand they beat the Raptors all the time, but clearly that's not a 500 team even. So, I mean, what have you seen from Cade of late? Like, what's been the difference for him?
With Cade, it's the type of thing where I feel like he's just starting to grasp the pace and the flow of games, and he's starting to adjust physically in the way in which he drives to the basket. I think that's really the key thing, his ability to drive to the rim, whether it's in transition, whether it's in pick and roll. He plays with such pace, keeping defenders on his back, using slight little hesitations and head fakes to generate room. And his passing is magnificent. It doesn't always pop up on the assist. His teammates are not shooting a high percentage off of his passes attempts for 3-pointers. If he's surrounded by better shooters, I think you'd see more than 6 assists per game since the All-Star break. I think you'd see him closer to 8.5. And we'd be talking about like, oh, Cade Cunningham closing the season with 23 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, like nearly a triple double, and leading this blah team to some victories. So I think with Cade, he just looks like a guy who's in full command of the game. Granted, his scoring efficiency still needs to improve over the course of time. Right now, he's still not shooting well from 3, well from the perimeter. And if you're a Pistons fan, you would hope that stuff like that improves. And that's why I think for me, like, he's slightly behind Mobley and Barnes for me. But like, he's also doing the most in terms of the shot creation. So that's again, like a tough balance.
Yeah, no, this is first off, this is just a generational draft class. Like, I think when we look back on this, like 2-3 years from now, I mean, like, we've had a lot of good talent come into the league, whatever. But like, I mean, this class, I was thinking about it, like, how far down the list do you have to go until a team decides, well, we weren't fully satisfied with what we got from this pick. And I think for me, it probably has to go all the way down to like book night at 11 for Charlotte.
Yes, something like that. I mean, I think obviously Raptors fans were very familiar with Jalen Suggs and
Yeah.
expecting him to be the pick over Scottie Barnes. But Suggs, even then, like he's struggling to score for the Magic. He's missed a lot of time. But even then, if you're a Magic fan, you're like, oh yeah, we can still see, what he can turn into.
Yeah.
You're a Warriors fan, Kuminga, you're happy. Maybe Davion Mitchell with the Kings. It's hard to be happy about much.
But then they traded Halliburton to give him some more minutes. So
yeah, maybe
they better be happy. Actually, you know what? There is just no happiness for Kings fans, period. So
yeah, I really think that's what it is. They're just in a different category. They don't belong in this conversation we're having. There's just never happiness for Kings fans, which is really sad that we even say that because it's kind of true.
Yeah.
It's not like Raptors fans. Like Raptors fans have so many great young players to watch and root for and feel inspired by, like with what the team could become in the future. Kings fans have, I don't know, De'Aaron Fox averaging 28 points per game and not much else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I'm sure you've had many interactions with the Raptor fan base. Like, we swing wildly. I think the Raptors lost back to back to Orlando and Detroit, and the tenor of the show was definitely not as bright as this currently. So, I'm just going to show a little self-awareness here.
With Nikias Duncan, who writes for Basketball News, a couple weeks back, he was tweeting out, "Oh, there's an NBA contract in the NBA that I think is horrible that nobody's talking about." And I responded with a list of players who obviously don't have, horrible contracts. And Raptors fans just jumped on me, like, "How dare you put Pascal Siakam on that list?"
I'm sure that was like a reply.
And I love it.
That wasn't even like just an individual tweet. That was a reply. So only people who follow both of you, which is a lot of people, to be fair.
That.
But
I love that. I love the passion about a team. That was me, growing up rooting for the Celtics, arguing with people who said they should trade Rondo instead of Telfair and stuff,
Yeah, no, fair enough. Listen, why are you in the sports business if you don't give hot takes? Or not even just hot takes, but just like, because there's like a difference between like hot takes of just like, you're just throwing anything out there to start an argument versus just like, giving a strong opinion, which I think is where you're on. Okay, let's get back to the Scottie thing. All right, more Scottie propaganda. So since the All-Star break, averaging 19.2 points, 8.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.8 steals, a block per game on 57% shooting in a lot of these games. It's not even just like what he's doing overall. It's when he's doing it. He's flipped a lot of these games. Like the Raptors on a 4-game win streak. He's had a big hand in all these games. Spurs game, Raptors are stuck in the mud. Third quarter, Scottie takes over, scores 15. Raptors take the lead. They don't give it up. They go into Denver. He's guarding Jokic. He's frustrating Jokic. He's scoring down the stretch. The Raptors win that game. Against Phoenix, 3 steals in the last 2 minutes. They win that game based on their defense. And then the last game against the Lakers, that game was won in the first 5 minutes of the game because the Raptors were up like 36, and Scottie was the main part of that as well. So, KLC, I'll just ask you, what more does Scottie need to do to secure that vote for you permanently?
Just more of that.
Okay, so if he does this the rest of the season, he's got your vote, 1 of 300, I think.
Yeah, I mean, more of that, and I think that's why, I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know who I'm going to vote for here, but my gut tells me, and I'm not just saying this because we're talking, but my gut tells me Scottie Barnes ends up being my selection because of everything you just described. He's doing everything for the Raptors. You can't say that about Evan Mobley. You can't say that about Cade Cunningham, but you can say that about Scottie Barnes. Like he is doing everything for the Raptors, and it's stuff beyond the box score too, with the mismatches he forces, with the advantageous situations that he puts Toronto in with his shot creation, never mind his defensive versatility. I mean, like you can put him on guards, on wings, on bigger forwards. Like it's just, he does everything. And I asked myself that question with Cade Cunningham and Evan Mobley, and the answer is no, they don't do everything. Scottie Barnes does do everything. And that's why my gut tells me that it's going to end up being him as long as we see more of exactly what you just described.
Okay, for the social team, I'm just going to tell you this right now. Clip that, put it out there. It'll generate engagement. All right, let's move on because let's just say we have that one vote in hand here, which is great. Thank you, Kevin. But, that's only one of two. All right, Pascal Siakam is also having a phenomenal year. And I understand he didn't make the All-Star game. That made sense to me. I mean, look, listen, I think he was playing on an All-Star level, but not all All-Star level players make the All-Star game. He missed the start of the season with obviously recovering from shoulder surgery, missed about the first 10 or 11 games of the season. So at the time of the All-Star break, it was like, all right, you know what? The game's in Cleveland. You put Jared Allen in the game. You put LaMelo Ball in the game. That's fantastic. That's great. At this point, though, the attention now turns to Pascal and his potential case for All NBA. And I'm not trying to say clear cut Pascal is one of the top 15 players in the NBA. I don't feel confident enough, even as a propaganda program here, to just declare that outright. However, he is having a really, really nice year. And I'm thinking to you, Kevin, right now, I mean, this is still a month out. I'm sure you got a lot to cover. You got March Madness on the horizon as well. Is he in that mix for you as a potential All NBA candidate? And if not,
yes.
why? Okay,
Yeah.
yes. Okay,
Probably for third team.
that's fine. We'll take that.
He'd be a candidate for. Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be weird. This year's weird because let me like preface the Siakam take because the first team take, like first team, Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis, all three of those guys should be on the first team.
Okay.
The question is going to be, do all three of them make the first team? Because Jokic and Embiid are probably going to be listed both as center and forward. But the way the NBA voting works is they give the edge to the player who had more positional votes. And if this is confusing, I understand. But the point is that there's a chance Jokic gets the center spot, Embiid and Giannis get both forward spots. And if that were to happen, that's opening up more slots, behind them to get into the forward slots. If all three don't make it, maybe those guys are making the center spots instead, opening up even more. So I think with Siakam, depending on what happens with that first team, you'll see an extra guard or an extra forward make it on that last team. Does that make sense? What I'm saying, because of the way what happens up top, it's just opening more opportunities.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Like, for example, this happens with All NBA all the time, but like usually it doesn't happen at the center position. Usually it happen at the guard position where somebody
Yeah.
who's like having a phenomenal year gets squeezed out of first or second or even off the three teams altogether. Usually what you have at center is like, oh yeah, Andre Drummond is the third All NBA third team, or like, it's time to give it to DeAndre Jordan, because we just need a center. This time is totally different. Like, I agree with you. Like, there's no reason why Jokic or Embiid shouldn't be headlined as one of the 5 best players in the NBA this season. They're absolutely. But the issue is they play 100% of their minutes at center.
Yeah.
So how do you justify putting them at forward? I mean, like, I think you can, just based on the fact that what are positions these days anyway? This is sort of outdated, but
the NBA got to get rid of them. Get rid of the positions. It should be the 15 best players, period. Not like we shouldn't even be talking about, if Embiid, Jokic, and Giannis make the first team, that means that there's one less forward spot for another guy to make. Like, it just shouldn't be part of the conversation where Cat or Gobert makes a center spot just because all three of those guys made it. It just, I don't know. It's very strange, and I wish the NBA would just go to the best 15 without consideration for position. Because isn't Jokic also kind of a point guard?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just don't understand the positional designations. A couple of years ago, they had LeBron as a forward, but Ben Simmons as a guard.
Yeah, that makes no
and it's
sense.
like they kind of do the same thing.
Well, I mean, listen, because this is a propaganda program, the fact that you do have to select based on positions at the current moment does help Pascal's case, because arguably the depth at forward is the thing that's concerning me. Because when you look at the list, right, for me, there are 4 locks at forward. And, LeBron obviously is having, a weird year. The Lakers aren't doing well, but like LeBron's still LeBron. LeBron's going to be a lock.
Yep.
KD's missed a lot of games, but KD is KD. He's going to make the team. And then you got Tatum, who's been unbelievable for the Celtics. And then Giannis, who, is tremendous as always. So those are the 4 locks at forward. And then that leaves you with 2 spots. Now, the thing is, if we're just talking about strictly forwards, right, you mentioned sort of bumping centers around, and maybe, you'll see a situation where, like, I don't know, DeMar gets listed as a forward or Doncic gets listed as a forward. You never really know. But if we're just talking about strictly forwards, right, it's really the competition to me is between Pascal, a guy like Jaylen Brown, a guy like Brandon Ingram, maybe even Jimmy Butler if you want to put him in that list. Where do you see it? If we're just talking about those 4 players there in contention with Pascal, do you see Pascal at least at the top of that list?
I mean, I haven't thought about it deeply or done like deep research on who'd be at the top of that list, but I'd probably, like, off the top of my head, have him slightly behind some of those guys, but not all of them. I mean, I think who are our top 4? For like Embiid, Giannis, LeBron, Tatum, something like that might be your first and second team potentially, but that third team. I mean, Siakam, it's similar to what we were talking about with Scottie. Like we've seen his role vary throughout the year between higher and lower usage. Like
He's had
other
to run
guys
point at times, Kevin.
Yeah, like point Pascal at certain points this year, and he's done a pretty good job at it. And like we're talking right now about positions in the NBA and how maybe there should be no positions. The other side of that is from a player standpoint. Like with Scottie, I really value that he does everything. With Pascal Siakam, I really value that he's done everything. Like you mentioned, the weird year for LeBron. I value that he had to play some small ball five for them throughout the season. I think versatility in your role should be part of the equation when it comes to assessing how great is this player. Did they do one thing throughout the year, one specific role, or did they have to fill so many different roles during this weird COVID season with guys missing time, in and out of lineups? To me, that's one of the reasons why the Raptors are currently, in a playoff spot, is because of Siakam's ability to do different things at different times of the year. And like that's one of the reasons why the Lakers are in the play-in and not like at the bottom of the league right now. So I think stuff like that factors into the equation and is definitely going to be heavy on my mind when it comes to actually inputting, who those six forwards are going to be. And Siakam's right there. He's right there.
Yeah, he's in the mix. I listen, this is not the Scottie thing where I'm like trying to push it that hard. I mean, like, I understand that like the all NBA competition is just always really difficult. To be honest, like I would prefer they just took the top 15 teams, as you mentioned. I don't think Pascal would be a clear lock in that sense, but I think he's in that next range of players, which is pretty good. Like I think for Raptor fans, like we're not too greedy with this sense because he had the shoulder surgery and to be honest, since the bubble, like that left a bad taste in a lot of Raptor fans' mouths. And so they're really just trying to figure out where they're at with Pascal. But personally, I think Pascal has just played fantastic basketball. This is, he's played point, he's played center at times. I mean, look, the Raptors are a truly positionless team. This is partially why we talk about, Scottie doing so much and Pascal doing so much. They're asked to do literally everything because that's the way they want to play. So, like, I think ultimately, if we can go 1 for 2, Kevin, I think we'll be happy with that. Obviously, 2 for 2 would be great if Pascal finished the year. Like if the Raptors really, really make a hard push and they're like a top 4 seed, which, it's hard to say right now, but they're only 3 games back of Chicago, for example. Like maybe we can get you to reconsider. I can press you again later in the program. Before we let you go, in the Eastern Conference right now, who do you like coming out of this thing? Because I'm just looking so much forward to the playoffs in the East in particular. And I think my pick is Miami, but I'm not feeling super confident about that. What's your pick to come out of the East right now with the month left?
I don't feel great about the Miami pick either, even though they have managed to be at the top of the East despite having so many guys in and out of the lineup all year long. They've also been there before. I think that makes a big difference too. It's hard to pick against Giannis. I picked Embiid and Harden in the Sixers as soon as the deal happened, but in the weeks since, as you watch that team and some of the little issues with their big issues with their depth, and some of the little issues with, potential Harden and Embiid stuff, I kind of just default to what I did in the preseason, which was the Brooklyn Nets.
Oh my
God. In the preseason, I said Nets Warriors, but yet Kyrie's still a part-time player and Ben Simmons isn't playing yet. So is that really like a serious prediction at this point? It's more like a projection with like assuming those guys will be full-time and healthy. So in that sense, maybe the most realistic and the easiest pick is actually just Bucks, a team that has Giannis. They have great support, with Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, a good bench, good rotation. Brook Lopez just got back. Maybe it's really just as easy as saying the team that made it last year with arguably the best player in all of basketball and Giannis. It might just be easier than we're making it out to be. And it might be just the Bucks, but I'm in a place today where I'm talking myself into the Nets. So we'll see about Kyrie and Simmons though.
I mean, listen, Kyrie with playing twice a week right now is amazing. Like, what do you have 60 yesterday? I watched it. He had 41 in the first half. I understand it was against Orlando, but come on, 60.
He made it look so easy too.
Yeah.
It's like you can't do anything against a guy like that. It's wild.
No, listen, the Canadian government can do that, okay? Kyrie, do not let him come play in that 7-8 playing game, okay? I know they're upset at the mayor right now, right? Which is understandable. I think the rules there are confusing, but the rules are pretty clear about crossing that board. If you're unvaccinated, you got to quarantine for 2 weeks. So unless Kyrie wants to take the last 2 weeks of the season off, Hopefully,
Hey,
it doesn't
I
happen.
mean, you guys could move on up though. Anyway, though, as you said, only
That's
three
right.
games back from the Bulls for that fourth spot. I don't see the Cavs holding on to six. They've had too many guys out. Jared Allen being missing is massive for them, and the Raptors are, they're trending up right
Yeah.
now.
Listen, man, the Raptors are gonna steal the rookie of the year, and then they're gonna put them in the play in, and then they're gonna have to play Kyrie and Kevin Durant in a 7-8 playoffs playing game. That's gonna be fantastic. But Kevin, I appreciate you. You've already been labeled Kevin O'Canada before, but I think you've really cemented it with this performance here, where we have secured, guaranteed lock that you're voting for Scottie Barnes. I appreciate you, Kevin.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, before we go to break, I wanted to let everyone know that for a limited time, only until March 21st, McDonald's is offering My McDonald's reward members 2 times the points on their purchases to get free McDonald's faster. And we want to celebrate this promotion by giving away $250 in McDonald's gift cards every day this week until Friday. All you have to do is text the code word that we are about to give you to 590 and you'll be entered into a chance to win $250 in McDonald's gift cards. The code word for today's episode is Big Mac. All right, so that does it for us. In the first half, I'm your host, Will Lou. You've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. Welcome back to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Walu. I'll be joined in the second segment by Vivek Jacob of Raptors.com. But before I chat with Vivek, I wanted to let you know about Access Storage. Do you need extra space? Because Access Storage has affordable storage solutions at a store near you. Try 4 weeks free. Details at accessstorage.ca. And Access Storage, by the way, is giving away an incredible Raptors prize bundle for their staycation giveaway, which includes 4 tickets to the Raptors game on March 18th against the Los Angeles Lakers. And I definitely want to stress the loss part of that. 2 hotel rooms at the Delta Toronto by Marriott, and also 4 Raptors jerseys. All you have to do is listen to the code word that we will give you in today and tomorrow's episodes, and then text each code word to 590-590 to be entered in for a chance to win. Visit sportsnet.ca/contest for more details. Today's code word is Boucher, as in Chris Boucher, my boy. All right, now we're going to bring in Vivek Jacobs of Raptors.com. Big V, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. Just, sitting on that L from Manchester United in the Champions League. Kind of expected, to be fair, but it is what it is. Continue. Hey, at least we can watch the Raptors try to get another W.
Yeah, well, I got some bad news on that front, but we'll get to all of that. Definitely we'll have some time at the end to talk United. But actually, first off, I actually wanted to bring this up, jokes aside. I was visiting your Raptors page, and I must have missed this when it happened, but I noticed that you had put out a call out for help on behalf of a friend looking for a bone marrow transplant. Could you just tell us more about what's going on there?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, man. So it's a really close friend of mine that I've known for 20 years. His sister's twin kids have been dealing with a genetic condition that they were diagnosed with at 7 months old. And it's reached the point where they need a transplant. They need this bone marrow transplant. And right now they can't do basic things like, just go to the neighborhood park or, just play around in the dirt or, visit the zoo, things like that. They can't do any of that. They've got to be pretty restricted in their activities. And, the main thing that I've learned from this is that only about 7% of Canadian Blood Services stem cell registry is made up of South Asian donors, which is what's making it difficult for the twins, Misha and Zoe, to find a match. It's, the process to find a match. If you sign up on the links that I've provided, you'll see the tweet is pinned to my profile. You literally sign up and they will send you in the mail something where you can just get a mouth swab done. And then if that's a match, then it's a blood donation. Mm-hmm. So it's not an overly invasive process to just see if you can be a match. And obviously, if there's something that can be done to help these 2 twins, the entire family and myself would be extremely grateful.
Yeah. Damn. This is, what do you even say in this situation? Just definitely try and help out if you can, because, you'll find the details at Vivek's Twitter page, at Vivek M. Jacob, but it's a really unfortunate situation. I'm really hoping for the best here. Any way we can help, obviously, we're going to try to do that. I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to click this link and I'm going to make sure that, let's just see. Who knows? All right. Well, Vivek, we're going to move on from that to talking about the Raptors, and, there's really no natural transition. So I'm just going to make a hard pivot here. But
hey, they all love the Raptors. this buddy of mine,
there we go.
We've been fans for a long time. We were in university together. We watched a ton of games together. I know we're going to talk about the 2013-14 season, that game 1 of the playoffs against Brooklyn. We were in the building together watching the game. So again, a very close relationship that I have with him. But yeah, let's get to basketball.
That's right. It's a you'll never walk alone situation over here. All right. So I was perusing Real GM, which I'm on there occasionally, and I saw one of the threads on there said that the Raptors are 28-17 since the low point of the season. It's actually 29-17 now, I think, since the last win. But the Raptors, their lowest point of the season was they lost to Memphis at home in early December. They were 9-13 at that point. Pascal had just come back from injury, but he wasn't fully himself at that point. He had some other injuries to deal with. I think OG was out. And since that point, the Raptors are 29-17. That would be the 7th best record in the league since that point. So basically, since the start of December, the Raptors are 29-17. It's a 63% win percentage. And it got me thinking, are there parallels to another Raptors season that essentially followed a similar script where you come in, a lot of uncertainty, right? You don't know who's going to be the leaders of this team. You don't know how the team is going to perform. They're quite young, right? And that season, obviously, the Raptors started 6-12, and Masai made some trades, most notably with the Rudy Gay trade, which helped them supply them with a bench, and also they, most importantly, was the trade not made to deal Kyle Lowry, because that led to a decade of prosperity. But the Raptors finished that season 42-22 the rest of the way, which is a 66% win percentage. So essentially, like, roughly the same deal. And I guess the only thing we're really missing here is the Rudy Gay trade. So, Vivek, do you see parallels to that 13-14 season, which, you know, for a lot of Raptor fans, that was like the start of like the We the North era? And I look back personally on that season with a lot of fondness.
Yeah, love that season. I think there's some big picture parallels to be drawn. Like,
Okay.
when you look at the team getting off to that slow start and now being ahead of schedule, and now you're saying, okay, you're in the playoffs. What are you going to do to move up from that to being a contender? And that's kind of the conversations that we're having now about this team. If you look at sort of the co-leaders of the franchise at that point, it was Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. Now you've got Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam. So those are like a couple of the big picture things I would look at. But beyond that, it's pretty different, right? Like you said, there's no Scottie Barnes. In terms of the roster and the style of play, there's nothing much to be drawn from that. The other big picture takeaway I would have is also the toughness of that group. And you look at the toughness that this team has as well. They really took on the identity of Kyle Lowry. And I was looking back on this season, and some of those wins that they had on the road, they beat OKC when OKC was 13-0 at home and riding a 9-game win streak. Obviously, that OKC team was, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka, that stacked OKC team. So to beat that team when they're 13-0 at home was a big statement. Later in the season, we all remember, I think, fondly that road game in Brooklyn where, Patrick Patterson steals a ball. He makes that shot.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was that season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think some really fond memories of them picking up big wins on the road that made you believe in that group. And now when you look at what this team has done on the road, I mean, they're on the verge of a perfect West Coast trip here,
Yeah.
And so to beat these teams the way they have, San Antonio, Phoenix, Denver, the Lakers, and then possibly tonight against the Clippers, that would be a huge statement. Of course, we remember that huge Scottie Barnes game in Boston, the win on the road in Miami, that triple overtime classic. So I think that's the other parallel that I draw on as well.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, actually, because I mean, that season, it was just so unexpected in a way. You just didn't know what to get coming in. There was talk of like, let's tank for Wiggins, which, thankfully they didn't tank for Wiggins, okay? But it's just there were so many, as you mentioned, headline wins. I remember even that year they beat the Pacers, who were the top team in the East outside of Miami. It was them in Miami. And that was Paul George, Roy Hibbert, Danny Granger, like David West, like George Hill. That team was really nice. And the Raptors beat them at home. I think Terrence Ross had a really good performance matching up against Paul George. And, I think that was just one of those seasons where it's found money. And that might be the best, outside of winning the championship and contending and everything like that and rooting for like a generational superstar, like that might be the best thing to get in an NBA season or in any sort of season where you just have low expectations and you constantly have them exceed. And that's where the Raptors are right now, which is, I think, a nice thing to have. I mean, like, by the way, those 2 years, the Raptors at this point in the season were also 38 and 30.
Wow.
So they're like exactly on pace for each other. And I maybe wanted to get through that roster and maybe compare it to this roster, because I think the obvious comparisons are, okay, so Fred is, this year's version of Kyle that year. right? Pascal is this year's version of DeMar that year. Different type of players, but essentially the top two guys. You knew who those were. I wanted to get like, are there any other comps that you see between that 2014 roster versus this 2022 roster? That might also continue to highlight the parallels between these 2 years.
I think it's really hard to find any parallels because when you look beyond that, maybe you slide Gary Trent Jr. into that Terrence Ross category.
Yeah,
and
I think they're roughly around the same age too. I mean, I think Gary's better than Terrence Ross, but that's another conversation.
Yeah, so I think beyond that, it's really tough to say.
What about
you could say beyond? You could say beyond JV, the center rotation is pretty much just as shaky. But yeah, point guard wise, you had Grievous Vasquez, who that season at least, was a positive contributor, brought some really good vibes to the team,
Yep.
and had a good impact. I mean, I think the Raptors could use that version of Grievous Vasquez right now. But
hey, he is a tall point guard, which is all the Raptors ever want to get. So, although probably doesn't play the defensive impact. I mean, look, if it were up to me, I would stretch it like, okay, so you get Patrick Patterson in a trade that year, kind of similar to like Precious Achiuwa. I mean, like, I'm not saying they're similar players. I really don't think they are. But, like, in the roles that they're serving, coming off the bench, defensively really strong. Their defensive metrics are really good. Both acquired them in a trade that season. Got to pigeonhole that one in there. JV as the young player coming in, starting the whole year, really living up to expectations, exciting people with what he could do. I think Scottie obviously is better than JV, but, a similar role-ish there. Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm stretching it. But in any case, let's
the one thing, the one big difference between Precious and Patrick Patterson, Precious is not going to travel before he gets a shot.
Oh,
he's
come on,
Precious
man.
is going to make sure he gets that shot.
No, come on. Patrick Patterson was good around that time. He was good before the knee injury.
I'm just playing.
Pat Patterson was good. I can't believe I'm making Pat Patterson propaganda on this program. We don't really need to do that. We did a lot of that with KOC in the first half. But no, I just think that we should appreciate this season a lot more than I have. I mean, look, I think for me, I'm doing the daily show, and I think part of the appeal of the show potentially is just like how things swing based on the emotions of the season, in terms of the fan base. But I think on the whole, we really do have to look back at this thing and appreciate it. And maybe, just like that season had a trade, the Raptors had the in-season trade as well with Thad Young. I guess Goran is Rudy Gay in that sense. But in any case, like, this is just really fun, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it goes. Hopefully the Raptors don't see Brooklyn again in the first round, which, as of right now, would be the possibility. But yeah. In any case, that was a good time. All right, let's talk about the game tonight. Actually, so in terms of the bad news that I had for you was that the Raptors put out their latest injury update, and you have Fred VanVleet, who continues to deal with knee soreness, is questionable. Gary Trent Jr., who has picked up a non-COVID illness, has also been added to the questionable list. OJ Anunoby is listed as doubtful, and so I don't know, man. We might be right back to the situation where it's like, okay, the Raptors have been doing really well on this road trip. 4 games, winning in a row on the Western Conference, but if we're dealing with the same injuries coming back up again, then you might start to see results similar to, Detroit and Orlando, which no one wants to see that. But, I mean, how concerning is this to you? Like, just the fact that the Raptors are consistently still dealing with these minor injuries that are not so minor when you consider the fact that there are 2 very, very important positions with very little depth at those spots.
Well, first off, the Gary Trent one is kind of random, right? Like, illnesses are going to happen.
Sure.
Hopefully he can recover quickly, and that's not something I look at as sort of a long-term concern. With Fred VanVleet, I'm actually pretty relieved that they're being mindful of the knee, and they got him that rest night in Denver. Maybe he gets this night off as well. We'll see, but I do like that they're being mindful of it, because I think at this point you have to have one eye on the postseason and making sure he's in the best condition possible for that. So, and the emergence of Scottie, to this next level that we've seen since the All-Star break. I think that allows for it as well, right? The way he's able to stabilize these bench units uh, and produce, I think that allows you to take it a bit easier with Fred. I'm sure the 4 game win streak, getting all these wins on the road helps as well. So I like that they're managing Fred's body. OG, like Nick Nurse said, he's gonna have to make a decision. It doesn't seem like it's healed as well as it should have over this 2-week timeline that was initially proposed. Um, so if it's something that's unbearable, then he's maybe got to look at what the long term best decision is.
Mhm.
If it's something that he feels comfortable enough to play through, then I would, at the end of the day, I would just leave it up to him. If he feels like it's something that he can play through and he wants to be a part of this final stretch here, then that's the choice he's got to make.
Yeah, it was actually really interesting with OG because they saw the specialist. I think the specialist actually put out a selfie with OG, that's cool. Like I don't know, man. If I see the doctor, I don't know if I want the doctor to put out a selfie with me. But in any case, this is different cases here, I guess. But yeah, so he saw the specialist. The update was given as Nick, relayed to us before the Lakers game, and then it was actually interesting. So if you go to the Raptors website right now, or the Raptors YouTube page right now, you can watch the interview that the reporters did with Nick in LA. They were practicing at UCLA. In that 6-minute interview, you can actually see OG practicing in the background of that camera shot. So if you really, really are that concerned about how OG is, you can actually go to that video and see. I think they were doing 2-on-2 drills. I think he was guarding Utah. I think at one point he hard fouled Utah and Utah crashed to the ground. I mean, anyway, the Raptors practices definitely really intense. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing for me is just what are you really going to, I guess surgery is not it's potentially an option, but it's not the greatest option right now. Because if you do it, then you're pretty much knocking yourself out for the rest of the year, right? So I think that's probably what Nick is trying to say in terms of just look, it is ultimately an injury management situation where you see if you can play on it or not. I mean, he's listed as doubtful, which for the Raptors essentially means that he's out. I'd be pretty surprised to see him tonight against the Clippers. I mean, the thing with Fred though, that's the thing that's more worrying for me is just how can we get to a point where Fred's going to consistently play at that all-star level? Because to me, since he's come back, I thought obviously the Spurs game he played at that level, but the other 2 games are just kind of even the Lakers game, I thought he played a good floor game, but he shot 13 of his 14 attempts were jumpers. He's not really going to the rim, and that's the thing that's concerning to me. And there's just no depth there. I don't know. I mean, you can get Pascal to run point, and I think it probably works against the Clippers or whatever. But ultimately, you will run into some issues here, and that's concerning to me, man. That's concerning. Is that concerning to you, or are you just mostly relieved that they're doing what they can in terms of just the injury management portion of it?
Well, the concern that you talk about, I've kind of that hasn't changed since about halfway point of the season, right? Where it's okay, it looks like these are the minutes that Fred is just going to have to play, and then this is just going to be the situation. And so knowing that was the case, you could always see something like that happening. And I think I was on here a while back talking about the 2014-15 season, right? And how it was starting to get fears of, the way Kyle Lowry was in that postseason. But the other thing I would say for Fred too, to continue the Kyle Lowry comparisons, is when you think about, whenever Kyle Lowry missed time, those first 1-2 games were always rough for him, right? He's always been such a rhythm guy, and I think Fred is the same, where he needs just that rhythm going. So I think that's the tough balance that the Raptors will have to strike the rest of the way, where they've got to keep him in rhythm. But they've also got to be mindful of the injury. And he's adjusting to a bit of a change in his minutes rotation as well, right? You were seeing him come out earlier in the first. And so little changes like that are something that he's going to have to adjust to as well.
Yeah. And look, listen, after the Raptors come back from this road trip, which that ends tonight, play the Lakers at home on Friday, then they're back on the road, Sixers. Then they're back on the back-to-back. They're in Chicago. But then after that, they're going to be home for 4 straight games. And hopefully, when you have, less travel to deal with. Maybe the knee response better to that. But I mean, look, listen. At the moment, the goal is to beat the Clippers, and listen. If you want to keep pace with the Cavs, you got to do exactly what the Cavs just did, and the Cavs just beat the Clippers, and the Raptors need to do the same. All right, last thing before we go, we got 2 minutes here. Where are you on United? Because I was watching that game, which was a mistake. Not a fun game to watch. I mean, listen, a lot of Atletico games are not fun to watch, but my God.
You got to enjoy it on some level as a Liverpool fan.
Oh, of course, I enjoy it on that level, but I mean, at the same time, I also just want to see good. I want to see good football, man. That was not good. It looked like United versus Burnley. This is what I'm trying to say.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of where I'm at with United, I've become more and more apathetic as the season has worn on. I've kind of accepted that this club is just going to continue in this circle and this cycle where, the owners don't have winning trophies as the number one priority. The number one priority for them is business. I think they are abusing the loyalty of the fans because they looked at Manchester United's brand and the fan base and have seen an opportunity where it's like no matter what they do, the loyalty will be there and the support will be there, and so the merchandise will continue to sell and the deals will continue to come. And I've kind of reached the point where I want to watch good football and I want to watch you know teams chase winning as number one. And frankly, this season I've probably spent a lot more time watching other teams than I have United.
That's tough. No, and I obviously for banter purposes, I enjoy your downfall, but at the same time, it was rough watching that game. I mean, like, so the substitutes that you guys ultimately ended up making because you guys were chasing the game 1-0. Look what you had coming off the bench: Cavani, Rashford, Juan Mata, and and Pogba coming on. I mean, like, so at the end there, you basically had like 3 defenders really, and really just one defender, Varane, and you had the other 2 wingbacks are all pressed up at the field. Like, it's, I don't know, that's about as much firepower as you can throw out there, and I don't think you guys even had like more than 1 or 2 decent chances. I think there was like 1 really nice save.
Well, that was the thing that frustrated me. The fact that you only threw on these players who have attacking on their mind, and you need someone who's going to maintain possession to give you enough chances. And I just, what I didn't agree with was taking Fred off when he's having this incredible game. And so I thought, if you had Fred and Matic together, and then everyone else can go do what they do. Once you take Fred off, you're forcing Pogba and whatnot to defend, and that's not what they do.
Damn, Fred's carrying both of your teams. That's tough. All right, Vivek, appreciate you coming on. That does it for us today. I'm your host, Willu. You've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Make sure you find The Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review our show. A reminder, we are streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday between 2 and 3 p.m. Thanks again to Kevin O'Canada and Vivek Jacob, our board producer, Derek Brandeo, and Jennifer Rolnick for helping us behind the scenes with the YouTube stream. I will talk to you soon.